Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama on Rajya Sabha Television with me, Frank Pereira. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. Ugly warnings and accusations after Turkey downs a Russian bomber plane accusing it violated Turkish borders. It's the first attack by a NATO member country on a Russian plane in 60 years, and it raises memories of the Cold War days. Belgium shaken with fears of a Paris-like terror attack. Maximum alert extended another week. Malls, cinemas, restaurants remain shut. Hunt on for suspect Salah Abdeslam. ASEAN nations declared an ASEAN economic community, a single market with free flow of goods, capital and skilled labour in the region. In GDP terms, this grouping bloc is bigger than the EU. And a landmark for Argentina and South America as Mauricio Macri is elected president. Macri's victory means the exit of Cristina Fernandez, who ruled for 12 years. Well, our top story this week, Turkey's shooting down of a Russian bomber near its border with Syria, claiming the aircraft violated its airspace. The incident, the first time in more than 60 years that a NATO member country has shot down a Russian plane, has led to massive tensions reminiscent of the Cold War. Russia has scrapped cooperations with Turkey on terror and is even mulling economic sanctions. Promises of a united front against the Islamic State in Syria seem suddenly to have taken a back seat. Here's a detailed report.
That ball of fire is a Russian Su-24 bomber. Moments after it was hit by an air-to-air missile from a Turkish F-16 plane on Tuesday. It crashed nearly a kilometer outside Turkish territory in land owned by Syrian Turkmen. In the immediate aftermath, the big questions: where exactly was the Russian plane struck? Had it violated Turkish airspace? Was it warned? And was it actually on a mission against the IS? Russia termed its promises of unity against terror overturned.
And now we get stabbed in our back, and our planes which are fighting terrorism are struck. This despite the fact that we signed an agreement with our American partners to warn each other about air accidents, and Turkey, as is well known, is among those announced it was allegedly fighting against terrorism as part of the US coalition.
The tremors run much deeper. Both sides summoned the other's diplomatic representatives and called a meeting of its ambassadors. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov cancelled a visit to Turkey. Russian tourists have been asked not to go to Turkey. It is the first time a Russian aircraft has been shot down by a NATO member since 1952. And Russia has warned the incident will have significant consequences. NATO member countries returned to the stand that Russia is targeting more than just the IS in Syria.
Bayır Bucak Türkmenlerinin olduğu bölge
Daesh terrorists are not present in the area where Syrian Turkmen are living. Nobody should try to lure people. Only Syrian Turkmen who are our relatives are living in that region. They are ostensibly striking against Daesh, but they are hitting Syrian Turkmen, and Syrian Turkmen are trying to defend their land.
I do think that this points to an ongoing problem with the Russian operations, in the sense that they are operating very close to a Turkish border, and they are going after moderate opposition that are supported by not only Turkey but a wide range of countries. And if Russia is directing its energies towards Daesh and ISIL, some of those conflicts or potentials for mistakes or escalation are less likely to occur.
Promises of unity against Islamic State terror made at the G20 summit stand derailed, at least for now. Hopes of rapprochement after the Paris attacks fade once again. In Syria's theatre of war, a new, even bigger conflict threatens to arise. Francis Hollande has urged focus. The United Nations, among a host of others, desperately urged restraint.
The Secretary General urges all relevant parties to take urgent measures with a view to de-escalate the tensions, and he hopes that a credible and thorough review of the incident will clarify the events and help prevent future recurrences. And also, I think, just to reiterate what the Secretary General has been said a number of times, that he urges all those who are engaged in military activities in Syria, especially air campaign, to maximize operational measures to avoid unintended consequences, and of course, and most important, to do whatever they can to avoid civilian casualties and to protect civilians.
Strong protests from the Russian public at Turkish embassies. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov ruled out armed conflict, but there's little denying it will fight for dominance and relevance in the face of what it calls deliberate provocation. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this evening to talk about this is Ajay Kumar Patnaik, Professor, Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies, JNU. Welcome, Professor. Thank you for joining me on the program. You know, Russia is clearly miffed with what has happened. Something like this has not happened in over 60 years. That's a really, really long time. What are the kind of repercussions that we can expect?
Well, Russia expected sometimes some kind of mishap might happen like this. When it went into this air operation, it knew that it is going to clash with the interest of many of the powers which are involved in Syria. The Turks are involved, the European countries are involved, America is involved. And the fact that Russia was really gaining ground in Syria, that Assad's ground troops were being backed by Russian airstrikes, it knew that the other powers were not happy with Russian progress that is being made. But what really, I think, miffed Russia was Turkey is a very, very close country in terms of trade and economic relations with Russia. Thousands and thousands of tourists go to Turkey almost every month, So, and it's not a country which is hostile to Russia or an enemy nation. They're not at war. So, in a battle that is going on in Syria, Russia wouldn't ever expect Turkey, despite warning or some violations. Previously, violation also happened. Turkey complained, but it will not shoot down a plane. It will take it to different forum, and they didn't expect that. But it also symbolizes that Russia is gaining ground in Syria, and many of the powers who are backing other groups, non-state actors, they have their own Islamic groups. Those groups are losing ground. So Russia would take some positives from this. At the same time, Russia will retaliate, not by war, not by major threats to Turkey, but like economic sanctions are already happening on the ground. Turkish trucks are being returned from the border. Turkey's food and agricultural products are being now checked for standards and then being confiscated. The Russian tourists will stop going to Turkey. So these are major, some of the actions might take place, but it will not in a big way because there is a lot of Russian investment happening in pipelines, in nuclear energy and so on. So it will be some kind of symbolic retaliation, but not very, very strong retaliation. Because they're not at war actually, and there are too many interests involved between Russia and Turkey's relationship.
Indeed, but then there's another aspect to it. When the attacks happened in France, the Paris attacks, as well as the Russian jet being downed by an Islamic State bomb, we saw a coalition being formed. Russia, the US, and even France, for that matter, coming closer together to fight against the Islamic State. Are you going to see a change in that strategy now after this particular incident?
So that was immediately a reaction to Paris attack, and French president went and he agrees to collaborate and cooperate with Russia. But Russia always knew that there are, powers are not happy with Russian advances. And ISIS, and if not ISIS, there are many other radical groups which are backed by different powers, which are allies of, regional allies of the United States. They will not be happy after some time that their proxies are being demolished in Syria or decimated in Syria. So they will put pressure on the Western powers to prevent this happening. So this ISIS, was never a united front. It was only in the aftermath of Paris attack that some of the powers felt, the emotional force was so strong and the people's expectations were so strong that the leadership agreed that there should be some cooperation. But there is never going to be any cooperation in the
No
ground in
large-scale
Syria.
cooperation, but more of solidarity is what you're saying.
Yes, more of solidarities because they have their own proxies. They want maximum gains for these proxies on the ground. So when the negotiations take place and the ISIS is removed from the scene.
So can ISIS breathe easy now?
The ISIS will not breathe easy because the French will enhance bombardments, the Russians will enhance bombardments, the Russians will now protect themselves more by these SS-400 missiles, anti-aircraft missiles that they are putting on the Turkish border. So they will protect themselves, and they would expect that there might be another such incident from any other neighboring country. So they will be protecting their aircrafts with anti-missile systems, but they will just, because what has happened to the Russian aircraft, passenger aircraft, there is a lot of pressure for them to act. And they are gaining ground. Why should they stop?
Indeed.
Why? They are gaining ground in Syria. They have the advantage of having ground troops. The ground troops are provided by the Syrian army. No other power has that kind of ground support, which the Russians have. So at this point of time, and Russia's ultimate goal has been, in Syria, let's understand, not to let the post-Cold War order be dictated by one group of powers, regime change. All this has to be stopped.
Indeed.
So if they give up Assad and let him lose, then all that objective is being lost. So Russia would proceed faster on this track, and ISIS, at least it will clear the areas, which will clear more and more areas from ISIS control and let it come to Assad's control.
Indeed.
That is what the Russian policy would be.
All right, Professor Patnaik, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us on the program and putting
Thank you,
things into perspective for us.
Thank you.
Well, moving on now, of course, we'll slip into a short break here, but still to come, news of yet another shooting in the United States, this time at a party in a playground in New Orleans. Police suspect the drug mafia may be involved. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, amid the intensive probe into the terror strikes in Paris, neighboring Belgium is in a state of maximum alert, fearing similar attacks, and the psychosis is threatening to impact the festival season ahead. If it's fear back home, stepped up military strikes on Islamic strongholds in Syria is still being seen as a solution to the threat. Here's a report.
It's supposed to be the beginning of the famed Belgian tourist season, gearing up to its pitch. But all that lurks is dark terror, ghoulish and threatening. The metro system was at a standstill for most of the week. Shopping malls, cinemas, restaurants have been shut as fears of a Paris-style attack persist. And it's telling on people and business mindsets.
The atmosphere is a bit strange. We are in the Grand Place and it's quite empty. It's just journalists, policemen and the military. It's true, it's a strange atmosphere, but I hope from the bottom of my heart it will get better. The economic consequences, yes, they are there. Are we going to give figures? The response is no. And no employer is going to want to compare a drop in turnover due to keeping a population safe.
More than 20 raids and house searches in Brussels, Liège, Charleroi and Molenbeek, places considered potential hideouts. Dozens of arrests, but still no sign of Paris attack suspect Salah Abdeslam. An explosive vest and mobile phone were recovered in searches in Paris. In Molenbeek town alone, where Abdeslam lived, over 100 police, soldiers and special forces were deployed. A state of high alert across the country. The maximum level of 4 stays for now.
Nous allons bien sûr continuer à être alertes.
We are of course going to continue being alert, but the measures I announced to you are to remain until next Monday. Next Monday there will be a new evaluation of the threat by OCAM.
A powerful military response, stepped up bombing of Islamic State targets in Syria is the other side of the picture. The arrival of aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle in the area after the Paris attacks has tripled the French Air Force's firepower. 38 fighter planes have been pressed into service, besides 6 from air bases in Jordan. Alongside the US and France have agreed to joint attacks against IS strongholds. UK has agreed to pitch in too, and that's besides progress made by the US-led coalition in the area.
More than 8,000 airstrikes, combined with local partners on the ground, have pushed ISIL back from territory in both Iraq and Syria. Today, President Hollande and I agreed that our nations must do even more together. U.S. assistance has supported recent French strikes in Syria, and we're going to keep stepping up that coordination. And as we saw with the attack in Mali, the terrorist threat goes beyond ISIL. This week, I'll sign legislation to sustain our support, including airlift and intelligence, to allies like France as we work together to root out terrorist networks in Africa. We'll do even more to prevent attacks at home. Building on our recent intelligence agreement,
the fear monster looms over travel and holiday makers too. The United States issued a rare worldwide alert for its citizens, warning of increased terror threats in the wake of the Paris attacks and raids across Europe. It's here to stay, at least for some time yet. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Moving on now, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, has declared the establishment of an EU-style regional economic bloc, ASEAN Economic Community or AEC. AEC will integrate Southeast Asia's diverse economies with a combined GDP of $2.57 trillion, bigger than the EU itself. The bloc will eventually be a single market with a free flow of goods, capital and skilled labor in the region.
Signing of the Kuala Lumpur Declaration, leaders of 10 Southeast Asian nations put the stamp on implementation of the ASEAN Economic Community. The AEC envisages a single market with a free flow of goods, capital and skilled labor across borders in a highly competitive economic region. It will integrate Southeast Asia's diverse economies, a region with 620 million people. The combined GDP, incidentally, is more than the European Union, a powerful $2.4 trillion.
In practice, we have already virtually eliminated tariff barriers between us and under the ASEAN Free Trade Area. This makes our manufacturing industry more competitive in a global market and reduces costs for everyone. We now have to ensure that we create a truly single market and production base with freer movement of goods and services, with common standards, far greater connectivity, and the removal of the barriers that make our borders a hindrance to growth and investment.
ASEAN leaders also adopted the declaration on ASEAN 2025, forging ahead together towards a community that is politically cohesive, economically integrated and socially responsible. The ASEAN 2025 document charts the path for AEC's building over the next 10 years. Central to it is combating non-traditional security challenges like terrorism, drug-related crimes, human trafficking and maritime issues through various initiatives and projects. There's a roadmap in place articulating ASEAN's goals and aspirations to realize further consolidation.
I congratulate the establishment of ASEAN community and setting of mutual goals. As a partner who shares the same values with Japan, ASEAN stability and prosperity under the rule of law and democracy is very important for us. Japan will continue to support ASEAN's united efforts.
South Korea is committed to play an active role in the process of finalizing the integration of ASEAN community.
But even after the AEC becomes a legal entity on December 31st this year, full functionality is likely some way away yet. Politically sensitive areas like opening up agriculture, steel, automobiles and other protected sectors are yet to be addressed. Intra-regional trade is around 24% of ASEAN's total global trade for the past decade, far lower than 60% in the European Union. There's still a sizable disparity between what is officially recorded as achieved and what the private sector reports as their experience. Two major world economic blocs, European Union and ASEAN Economic Community. They're similar in that both are multinational groups in major regions of the world seeking to overcome past conflicts by promoting integration. There's little doubting the fact, though, that Europe is far more deeply integrated, at least for now, as a free trade zone with a supranational government and an elected parliament. But the ball's been set rolling here too, and massive possibilities come closer. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, let's take a look now at some other news-making events that made headlines across the world this week in Globe Watch.
Conservative opposition candidate Mauricio Macri comfortably won Argentina's presidential election on Sunday after promising business-friendly reforms to spur investment in the struggling economy. Macri, the son of an Italian-born construction magnate, won the election by tapping into frustration over anemic growth, high inflation and corruption. He becomes only the third non-Peronist leader since the end of military rule in 1983. Macri had gone into the runoff election with a comfortable lead in opinion polls over Scioli, the candidate of outgoing President Cristina Fernandez. Tunisia declared a state of emergency throughout the country and imposed a curfew on the capital Tunis after a jihadist attack aboard a bus on Tuesday killed at least 14 people. The attack was targeted at security forces. This is the second time that the government has taken this action after maintaining a state of emergency for 2.5 months, declared after the attack on 26 June that killed 38 foreign tourists on a beach in the coastal town of Sousa. 17 people were wounded, 3 of them critically, in a shooting at a playground in New Orleans in the US on Sunday. The shooting turned an evening of fun into a nightmare for nearly 500 people who had gathered at the Bunny Friend playground for what police described as a block party. A music video was also being filmed there. Police said neither event had a permit. Police say the shootout was probably gang-related. Reports suggest that the incident may be related to city's heroin trade. The probe is still on. 14 bushfires raging across southern Australia have killed thousands of animals, destroyed nearly 87 properties and burned across farmlands, forcing residents to flee and others to frantically try and save their homes and livestock. At least 2 people were killed, with authorities saying the toll could rise. Dozens are being treated in hospitals for burns. Latest reports say roads have been opened in some areas after dousing of flames. Wildfires are an annual summer event in Australia, but rising temperatures have prompted some scientists to warn that the climate change could increase the length and intensity of the summer fire season. The Australian Bureau of Meteorology declared October the hottest month on record.
Well, let's shift focus now and bring you up to speed with some big events from sporting arenas around the world this week in our segment Sports Action. Russia has accepted its full suspension from World Athletics over widespread doping without even requesting a hearing. The most severe punishment ever meted out by the International Association of Athletics Federations was made formal at a meeting of the World Body's Governing Council in Monaco on Thursday. Russia, which had previously denied any wrongdoing, vowed at the meeting to work with foreign inspectors so that it could be welcomed back into international competition. American decathlete Ashton Eaton was named the IAAF's Male Athlete of the Year for 2015 on Thursday after breaking the world record to win the world title in Shanghai. Eaton won the award ahead of Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt, who landed his 11th World Championship gold medal this year, and American triple jumper Christian Taylor. Genzebe Dibaba of Ethiopia won the female award after breaking the 1,500 meters world record in July in Monaco with a time of 3 minutes 50.07 seconds. FIFA's embattled president Sepp Blatter has said that he deserves an honourable exit from the world's football governing body, insisting he is not a bad man. The 79-year-old, along with his UEFA counterpart Michel Platini, are serving a 90-day provisional ban handed by FIFA's Ethics Committee. Describing the Ethics Committee's action against him as an inquisition, Blatter felt that he doesn't need to prove his innocence. Manchester City suffered their second defeat at the hands of Juventus as the Italian club outclassed the former 1-0 at home to advance to the knockout stages of the Champions League. Mario Mandzukić's first half goal was enough to claim victory as City failed to open their account despite repeated efforts. With the win, Juventus have climbed up to the top in Group D of the league table ahead of City, who are at the second spot in the standings. World number 1 Novak Djokovic finished the best season of his life in fitting style as he crushed Roger Federer 6-3, 6-4 to win the ATP World Tour Finals title for a record fourth successive year. Djokovic is the first player in the tournament's 46-year history to take home the trophy 4 years in a row, and he joins Pete Sampras and Ivan Lendl on 5 victories at the season-ending event. Only Federer, with 6 tour finals crowns, has won the tournament more times. Finally on the bulletin, more than 900 people of several nationalities gathered on Havana's iconic seafront to set a world record for salsa dancing, part of Cuba's attempt to get the record for the world's biggest salsa round dance, known as the Rueda de Casino, for 15 consecutive minutes. The government-organized event included everyone from students to housewives. I'm going to leave you with these visuals from Havana. See you again next time.